Hello, I'm Simon Whistler, you're watching the Today I Found Out YouTube channel, and in the video today we're looking at whether there's actually any difference between men's and women's razors and shaving creams. Shaving companies almost universally put out both a men's and a women's version of each of their products, with the women's version generally costing quite a bit more. But is there actually any difference between the so-called gendered razors and shaving cream, or is it all just really clever marketing? Well, let's start with whether there's any difference in the razors themselves. The answer to this question largely depends on what exactly you are referring to when you say razor. If we're exclusively talking about the razor blades themselves, then there is, for the most part, no difference whatsoever between men's and women's razors, with the one caveat being potentially differences in the quality of razor blades between brands. Beyond that, no brand we could find claims to use differently designed blades for their gendered products. In fact, a few years ago, Gillette issued a press release in which they stated that the blades they used in their gendered products are both the same blade technology. So the blades are the same, so what about the rest of the razor? After all, women's razors are generally more expensive than men's, so are you actually getting anything extra for your money? Typically, women use razors to shave a much larger surface area than men. In anticipation of this, many razors for women are built with a head that is more rounded and often much larger than a comparable male product. And why is this? Well, the extra stuff around the blades generally includes some sort of guide bar. This is a device that essentially helps get longer, fine hairs in the right position to be cut. This is done as many women, particularly in the winter, let their leg hairs grow out between shavings. This surrounding casing is also typically designed to reduce the likelihood of cutting oneself when shaving quickly, as such a large surface area often induces. On the flip side, the heads of men's razors are designed to facilitate more accurate facial grooming with smaller heads around the blades, as well as having the blades more tightly packed. This serves to better cut thicker hair commonly found on men's faces versus women's legs, and to cut the hair closer to the skin. The downside is that one has to be slightly more careful when shaving in order to avoid accidentally cutting yourself. To further facilitate this difference in shaving area, the blades of men's razors are also often put at more of an oblique angle than women's razors, along with a different contour of handle. The difference in angle and handle shape allows women to see better what they're shaving when, for example, looking down at their legs, versus men who look straight across into a mirror. So now let's move on to the shaving cream side of things. Well, unlike razors, which while extremely similar do have some differences, shaving creams and foams are almost always identical, save for two differences: the smell and the price. The base ingredients of both for a given manufacturer are generally the same. They're just fragranced and packaged differently depending on who they're marketed to. As for why women pay more for theirs, and pretty much all other grooming-related products, this is, well, it's up for debate. Consumer Reports did an article on this very phenomenon in 2009, specifically asking various bath product manufacturers why there was such a large price discrepancy, with all the responses from the companies leaving something to be desired. The best, or perhaps just the most amusing, was from Nivea, whose equivalent body washes for men versus women differ in price by about 27%. They claimed the price difference was because the women's version had skin sensation technology, which apparently isn't a technology that shows up in the ingredients list. In an interview with Boston Magazine, Dr. Christina Van Oosthuizen, who works at the Gillette Innovation Center, had this to say when asked about the price difference. The elastomer materials in the grip points, finger rests, and how women hold the razor are different and more comprehensive. It's important to make the razor ergonomic to use because women typically shave in a fairly wet environment. And for women, shaving can be like acrobatics, trying to get to the ankles, back of the legs, knees, etc. We want the handle to have good control so she can move it around in her hands. So this actually does a pretty good job of explaining the subtle differences between men's and women's razors, but it's not quite as satisfactory as giving a firm answer to the posed question about the price difference, other than to imply the slight difference in design is the reason for the large markup. Well, at least this is better than Nivea's explanation, if only just. Perhaps the most reasonable explanation is that proposed by Psychology Today. Lacking any good explanation from the manufacturers, they speculate it is because women are under a lot more more pressure to be as well groomed as possible, so are simply willing to pay more. By making it seem as if the women's product is superior, whether true or not for a given product, they are sure most will be willing to pay a markup for the best. So in the end, with razors there are some tangible differences that may affect your shaving experience depending on what you're shaving, and which you prefer may be more a matter of personal preference and shaving technique than your gender. And well, when it comes to shaving cream, how much do you really like that flowery scent? You will literally pay through the nose for it over the more manly scented varieties. And indeed, these manly scented varieties are often made out of exactly the same thing as the women's version for a given brand. And on a related note, this markup on women's products doesn't just exist in the personal grooming world. Inch for inch on material, women's clothing typically costs more than men's. This is particularly because tariffs on men's and women's clothing products often differ, with women's being taxed at higher rates. But this doesn't usually account for the full discrepancy. In addition, if you go and buy a bottle of Excedrin Menstrual Complete, you'll find you typically pay 8% more for the same number of pills as a normal bottle of Excedrin Extra Strength. The kicker is the pills in the last two bottles have the exact same active ingredients in the exact same amounts. But it's not all about the gender divide here. For instance, Excedrin Migraine will cost you about 50 cents more for 100 gels than the regular Extra Strength 100 gel bottle. As with Menstrual Complete, the active ingredients are identical and in identical doses. Now, I suppose the lesson here, beyond once again demonstrating product manufacturing costs often have little to do with what consumers pay, is that the more pain someone is in, the more they're willing to fork out to relieve it. And now for a bonus fact. Think it's weird that Gillette employs a PhD in Dr. Christina Van Oosterze to study shaving? Well, then it might blow you away to learn that in the facility where she works, there are more than 150 PhDs working for Gillette, all studying how individuals shave and testing numerous variations on their products to improve people's shaving experience. In fact, on average, almost 100 people per day are observed shaving at that facility in Reading. The Pro Glide alone was tested on over 30,000 men before making it to market. Needless to say, given the vast sums of money that can be made in the shaving industry and the customers are mostly locked into buying shaving products from someone, hiring the best and brightest to get an edge in the industry results in a lot of PhDs being hired by various manufacturers. Given all this research that apparently goes into shaving, it does seem kind of weird that all they ever seem to do is add an extra razor to the head of the blade. So, I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already for brand new videos just like this every day of the week, Monday through Sunday. Also, if you would like to help support us here at Today I Found Out in making these daily videos and getting something in return, t-shirts, posters, hoodies, all sorts of cool stuff, please do consider checking out our Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/TodayIFoundOut to learn more about that. It starts at just $2 a month, and obviously it's completely voluntary. We'd love your help. Anyway, that's all for now, and I'll see you in the next video.